Now, how do we go about this? I'm going to give you a really quick scenario. Now, this is a perfect case scenario, okay? Two young people who have godly parents, which is, almost like unheard of. Here's a young man. He has been trained by his father. His father has invested his life in him. Since he was a boy, the father was working to teach him the Scriptures, to teach him wisdom, to teach him things, to mold him and make him into a man. The father has sacrificed so many things. He did not climb up in the company. He was never able to buy the big bass boat. He never had any free time because he did what God told him to do. The father made his priority, first of all, the mother of that boy, and loved her with all his heart. And then second was the boy. And he gave his life for his wife and for his children. And so, here you are. You're 18. And with a father like that, you can work. You can work all day and it doesn't touch you. You don't even know what SpongeBob is. You could go and defend. You could die rightly. You can withstand things. You know things in your mind. You've studied history. You've become a man. And you begin to notice a girl. Again, perfect case scenario. She's been raised by her mother. She's been taught by her mother. Bible, 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 Bible. The things of womanhood, the things of virtue. This girl, her mother has invested 18 years of her life. And not only that, she has a father that she's looked at and she's always said, I'm going to marry a man and he's not going to have a lower standard than my dad. I've seen the way my dad loves my mother. I'm not settling for any other thing. And so this young man, he begins to notice this girl. He begins to notice her. They take interest. You can see it. He hasn't approached her. He hasn't talked to her because that's not his right. Oh, possibly as friends or something in the community of other youth and things like that. But he's never approached her about anything about his feelings. Or will you go steady with me or wear my ring? He doesn't even know what that means. He goes to his father, who's a godly man, and he says, Dad, I see someone, and I've been praying about her. And this, I think, maybe... And the father might stop him right there and say, Son, it's still not time. Son, there's still more for you to know. And what should the boy do? He should submit to his father. But it's possible the father's going to say, Son, I am proud of the way you have grown into a man. I know that you're able to spiritually lead. I know that you have the integrity to protect. I know that you have the ability to provide. I think this is a good thing. I know something of the girl. I know something of her family. I am in agreement. Then what happens? The father gives the boy permission to go ask the girl? No. That would be an offense against her father. He has permission to go talk to her father. Let me give you just a kind of a little illustration here. Let's say that I get up, it's October 1st, first day of hunting season, and I get up, it's 3 a.m, I go out, put on all my stuff, I'm excited, I've been scouting this big buck, and I go out to my truck, and it's gone. I'm calling the police, I'm mad as a hornet, everything else, my truck's just gone. And all of a sudden, at 10 o'clock in the morning, you come tooling up in my truck, and you go, Hey, Mr. Washer, thank you, here's the keys, see you later. That would be such an offense. Well, let me ask you something. Did you buy that truck? No. Did you do anything to keep that truck going? No. Do you have any right to touch that truck? No. Then what makes you think you have the right to touch another man's daughter? What makes you think you have the right to draw near to another man's daughter without talking to that man first? Because according to the Bible, she is under the authority of her father, and you are to honor her father. And you go to him, and you say, Sir, I'd like to have a private meeting with you. He says, okay. You begin to talk to him. See, this is where one of the parts of manhood comes forth. courage. Instead of sending some little boy that runs around with you to go talk to one of her little friends to find out if it's okay if you draw near because you're not courageous enough even to approach a little girl. I told you I was going to talk mean. But you go to her father and you say, "Sir, I've been praying about your daughter. I want to know if before you that is okay. I've been praying. I think she's a virtuous woman. I want to possibly proceed with a relationship." Now, the father doesn't look at the guy and say yes or no. This is the key. And fathers, listen very carefully. First of all, let's say that this father knows the young man and knows him to be a young man of integrity, reputable young man, everything. The father says, "Okay, young man, thank you. I'll consider it and I'll contact you." He doesn't say, "I'll ask my daughter." Why? Because the father's principal job is to protect his daughter so that his daughter never has to be confronted by another man other than himself. Sir, you do not send your wife to the door to take care of problems. You do not let another man confront your daughter. And so, you go back, and let's say that as the father, you agree. You think this guy is the best thing since sliced bread. And so you go back to your daughter, and your daughter says, "Dad, no." Dad should say, "Well, pray about it." She prays about it. She says, "Dad, no. No." So Dad goes back, calls the young man, says, "Young man, I'd like to meet with you." Meets with him, and he says, "I've prayed, and here's my answer. No." He doesn't say, "My daughter says no." Why? Because he'll put his daughter in a conflictive relationship with another man. He says, "I say no." And then when that young man says, "Well, what does your daughter say?" The father answers back and says, "You've just proven why I said no. Because if you were an honorable man, you would submit to my authority." He says, "No." But let's say that she goes, "Oh, happy day, Daddy, yes. Hallelujah," and goes into just a burst out in praise and sings the whole book of Psalms. Dad says, "I want you to pray about this. Emotions are vain and dangerous." She prays about it. Father prays about it. Mom prays about it. Looks good. What happens? Dad calls a meeting with the boy and his parents. And they sit down together and begin to scope out a strategy, rules of engagement, by which these two can get to know each other without ever being left alone so as to fall under the curse of youthful lust. They're allowed to go out in groups together, in a group together, chaperoned by godly people. Most church people do not qualify. Because most church people would not honor your father, and they would not honor your mother, and they would say your parents are kooks and too strict and let you go off by yourself. But a thing is set up where go over to Mom and Dad's house. You're there you are in the living room. You're allowed to be there 3-4 hours. You can talk all you want. Well, what about if we don't have any intimate contact? How are we going to know whether or not we're right for each other? You didn't learn that from God. You learned that from the devil. Well, if we don't test this out, if we don't experience it, how do we know? Look, listen to me. Sex out of wedlock is sin, and it confuses the relationship. It does not make it clear. Also, the idea of live and learn, well, that's what the devil told Adam and Eve. God said, learn and live. And so the young couple begins to get to know each other, to share things with each other, so on and so forth. And what happens? Maybe they begin to realize this is not of God. This is not our desire. And it's brought apart. Or maybe they realize this really is of God. and they make it to an altar in a way that few make it to an altar. Pure. Now tomorrow we're going to deal with a not so perfect case scenario. What happens when you're off at college? What happens when your mom and dad really don't care about any of this? What do you do then? That's what we'll deal with tomorrow.